I have found a few things like the Fuhrman tapes that came way after the investigation.
How did all those attorneys and everybody working in the orbit of that case,
Get along?
come together?
They
Yes.
didn't. They didn't. And she said, 80% of the country thinks your client's guilty. And I think at the time there's 300 million population. I said, 83 is 24, that's 240 million think he's guilty. We haven't heard from any of the other 60 million except me so far.
Welcome to another episode of Courtside Convo. I'm really happy to have a great friend of mine here with me, Pat McKenna. Pat is a private investigator for decades and has worked on literally the most famous cases in American courtroom history, certainly in the last 50 years or so, the O.J. Simpson case, the Casey Anthony case, and many more. Pat, thank you for coming on with us.
Pleasure.
So let's go back to the beginning. How
Okay.
did you get started in this crazy business, and how did you
my
become a private
business?
investigator?
So I've been investigating one way or another since April of 75. Started in Chicago as an adult probation officer. We moved to Florida, 78. And then I've been either in a public defender or on my own as an investigator, excuse me, since 78 here.
How did you get into the business? Like what drew you into it, and how did you, it's not like, I don't think there's private investigator school necessarily.
Right,
So how
right.
did you get into it?
Well, so I was going to college, got back from Vietnam, got the GI Bill, went to college, quickly got kicked out of the School of Business, and the only thing that would accept me was they were just starting what they called the Administration of Justice.
Okay.
And I had a real interest in all that, so I went over there and started doing very well in those classes, and it was interesting. And then when I finished, moved back to Chicago, where I'm from, and got a job downtown Chicago, and then moved here shortly thereafter. And I kind of fell into criminal defense because before I left investigation to do what they called consulting for sentencing. Worked for a group that we did this like pre-sentence investigation for criminal defense lawyers. And then the word got around a little, and I was meeting all these criminal defense lawyers around here, and a lot of them did not have the front of the case. So I'm doing the end of the case, and I would look at the front and say, geez, there's no investigation done. It's either you get arrested, they plead guilty to probation or prison, So I found a little niche, or I didn't find it. These people found me, and I started writing sentencing memorandum. And then Reagan came and changed the law. That became almost irrelevant because they came out with guidelines. So then I went to the front of the case, like in the early to mid 80s.
Yeah.
And I've always been criminal defense minded,
Yeah. So one of the fascinating things to me about what you do is, and obviously there's a lot of, technical work, getting access to documents and looking through all those things. How do you get people to talk to you?
Well, that's the key in our business. I just was with some other investigators the other day, and the key is, especially in my world, I don't like picking up the phone because it's too easy to hang up. So I old-fashioned,
Go to the door.
shoe leather, go to the door, knock on the door, and I got maybe 30 to 35 seconds to make a case. And, I usually identify, no pretext, no cowboy moves, tell them who I am, what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so many
You
times,
just have a likable face.
I don't know what it is. Yeah, that Irish chatter or BS, whatever you want to call it. And, I've learned over the years, I could read the room rather quickly. And, I smell somebody cooking, I go into cooking, I like to cook. So whatever you can get to start talking before they shut the door, I don't want to talk
Talking about something else other than what you really want
to
talk
try to
about.
get comfortable, let them know I'm earnest, why I'm here. I'm not here to trick them up. I try to humanize myself with the usually witnesses that don't want to, especially in high-profile cases. You think a witness, they already know that down the road they think they're going to be on a stand in front of worldwide TV, which happened in OJ, with their whole life exposed, their prior life, things they didn't want to come out, that don't come out on that show, but come out the way the media's changed actually since OJ's case.
Right.
The tabloid part of it is for me, I look at that stuff because I find witnesses sometimes.
Yeah.
But most of the time, the witnesses do not want to be coming to court. It's like jury duty. People don't want to do it. Same thing as a witness.
Right.
They don't want to do it. They generally already talk to police, the cops, given a statement, and that's where I have their statement usually before I go knocking on their doors. And we get to talking, and then it flows from there, if I'm lucky.
How often are you able to uncover something that previously hasn't been discovered in an investigation?
Well, a lot of times, because I don't mean to demean the cops' work, but so many times I've got a 2-page police report, and it gives me a little gist of what they might be saying. And if we get to talking, I don't show them that yet, but then they start telling me stuff, and I say, "Do you tell the police that?" "Well, yeah, I did," and I don't. It's not in their report.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have found a few things like the Fuhrman tapes that came way after the investigation, meeting people, talking to people about, let's say it was Mark Fuhrman. I talked to a lot of people, both in law enforcement that knew him, talked to a couple of his ex-wives at that time. So by the time the tapes came around, we'd already cross-examined him in March. F. Lee Bailey was the lawyer cross-examining him. And so we thought we had it right there. So the tapes were just kind of just following up leads,
Right.
I was lucky it was my only case. I'm out in California for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Didn't have to worry about anything else but one case. So I'm working 10, 18 hours a day. If I ain't working, I'm thinking about it. So
How long did that trial run, OJ?
January to October. So it was end of January.
9 months.
9 months. And I used to talk to Lee, this is a street case. They shouldn't last more than a month. It's a homicide case.
Right.
You had all the witnesses on this, but they turned it into a Hollywood production.
That's for sure.
The judge was bringing in actors and actresses and Bruce Jenner.
Now, what do you mean bringing it back? The judge was?
Yeah, to go in the chambers. You got a jury that's
like
sequestered,
celebrity.
and he's holding up the whole operation for the celebrity part of the Simpson thing.
Okay.
And I mean, it was a complete circus outside the courtroom, as you
Right. Yeah.
you
Sure.
could look, and
Sure.
and then it was getting into the courtroom must have been a big thing for some people,
Right.
So that's what
Hottest
it was.
ticket in
It's kind of
town.
like Knicks fans getting into the front row.
Right.
This was getting into
Celebrity
the
row. Yes.
celebrity
You knew you were
row.
going to be on TV.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
On national TV.
Yeah.
When everybody was watching.
And
So was that your first high-profile case?
no, not really. Before that was the William Kennedy Smith case, which was here in Palm Beach County. And also before that was a fellow named Jose Cabrera Sarmiento, who was the first Colombian ever extradited back into the United States. It was a big circus here, not nationally, but here it was. Oh, they had helicopters. They built a special courtroom at the jail, which is now expanded into, there's a whole courtroom and courthouse over there.
Right. Right.
And I mean, SWAT guys with AK-47s or M16s, whatever they had. It was a circus.
Yeah. Was that like a cartel case or something like that?
The story was that he was responsible for the Palace of Justice murders, all these judges that were murdered, early days of Colombian cocaine trafficking, and Jose was, his nickname was Pepe, and of course they threw everything on him. He was responsible for everything. And so that became quite a big case here. And then the next thing was William Kennedy, and then I forget, I think John DuPont might have been before or after OJ. And that was because
a lot of big ones.
A lot of big ones.
How did you get involved? How did people end up coming to you to ask for your help in those big cases?
It's usually lawyers call.
Yeah.
And so I've had like a history with a lot of, fortunately for me, being in the right place at the right time, doing that sentencing work, I could move around with different, I didn't have conflicts. I was doing the same thing.
Right.
So the lawyers would pass the word. And the next thing I know, say, a smuggler from Key West has got a trial in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So they got local counsel. So then it became like a national practice for me. I
Right.
was on a plane everywhere, going all over the place to do sentencing, which
Yeah.
was brutal, actually. Brutal
Yeah,
travel.
right.
If I never get on a plane again, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but it was constant, renting car, and there was no GPS. So you're renting a car. I'm going to 7-Eleven, getting a map, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The
and
AAA triptych.
all that.
The paper.
Dolph's maps,
Right,
those
right.
plastic things. I loved all those.
Yeah.
So
On the Simpson case, for
Yeah.
you, what did that really, boil down to, and what was your theory of the case that you helped put forward?
okay, and I speak about this in front of groups of investigators. I don't get in the case till June, I think 15th or early the 16th. So the murders are Sunday the 12th into the Monday the 13th. So by the time this day rolls around that I get a phone call, I'm thinking what everybody's thinking. He must have done it. There's all the titans of industry, Tom Brokaw, Dan Rather, Peter Jennings. They're all saying sources are telling us Simpson is the suspect. Then it goes to Simpson's the only suspect. Then it's bloody clothes in his washing machine. All sorts of stuff that let everybody think, oh my God, this is horrible. And then on the 17th was the famous Bronco ride. And by then I'm in Chicago at the O'Hare Plaza. I watched that thing, and I couldn't really talk to people yet. When I get in town, it was nuts. So the O'Hare Plaza was absolutely packed with media. There were cops there giving statements because they'd already been on the case. OJ had a room there, so it was a circus there too. So I had to kind of sit back and make my move when I could,
Right.
So, and I had a letter saying that I was the investigator for Shapiro's office. So,
Yeah. So where did it go from there, and how did you, how did you work with the attorneys to come up with the defense theory?
Well, I didn't really at the beginning. They just said, F. Lee Bailey's office called Ken Fishman, said, we might be getting OJ. And I thought it was a joke. And I said, oh, yeah, sure. He says, anyway, if we get in, can you go to Chicago? I remember saying, my hometown, sure. And now I'm learning it's serious because it's F. Lee Bailey's office. And I didn't know their prior relationship between him and Shapiro. So I went and got a plane ticket and everything ready to go, waiting on a call from, he said, the secretary, Bonnie, will call you and then she'll put you on to Shapiro. That phone call lasted 30 seconds. Shapiro said, I hear good things about you from F. Lee Bailey. And I said, oh, I got to send him a check. Trying to lighten up. He was strictly business.
Yeah.
I need you to go to Chicago, be my video camera. I need everything, everyone that Simpson interacted from the time he got off the plane till the time he got back on the plane. I said, okay. And I asked for a letter, and Bonnie faxed me a letter authorizing me as Shapiro's investigator, because I knew if I get up there and, I don't have any authorization,
Right.
They're going to throw me out of the building, probably. They almost did anyway. So then I went to Chicago. I think I was there from June 15th or 16th till July, I would say 3rd maybe, or 4th, maybe the 3rd or something. Whenever the prelim, I got back in town here in West Palm, thinking I'm done with Chicago. I did about a 35-page memo of everything that I learned. And when I left there, I started thinking, this doesn't sound like a guy that just killed 2 people. So it started to build what we called the demeanor defense. One of the pillars of our defense was that in the timeline.
Yeah.
And so I got back here, and I remember getting a call. I was talking to Bailey. I was sitting in my office here in West Palm, and Mark Fuhrman was on the stand. And, I was sitting there watching the conference room at my office, and said, man, something doesn't seem right about it. And about that time, Bailey's calling. I said, man, Lee, this guy sounds like, we've seen cops like this a million times. There's something about the guy. You just know something ain't right. And he said, you need to come out here. They're not knocking on doors. I forget Shapiro's investigators. We're not doing anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I came out and met with his main investigator, John McNally, who was probably the best criminal defense investigator I ever met. And so I worked kind of under John, following his lead. And then we started with a timeline on Bundy and basically getting stuff from the government, discovery, where we would learn names, no addresses, everything was redacted, blocked out. It was really like working backwards. You'd read the report, you go to the end where they stop back at their house and start looking. Well, he walked his dog on this, and work your way back to
figure out
the street that he started, and then knock on every door or look on every mailbox and find a name. And that's how we built the timeline. And I thought it was getting airtight, and demeanor didn't. And so we started building a defense that way. And Bailey was kind of in the background. When I got out to California, he said, come out here. I think that's about when Johnny was coming on. I think I met Shapiro, some of his people, for about 2 or 3 days. And then Johnny Cochran was coming in. I met him and his people. And
so how did all those attorneys and everybody working in the orbit of that case,
get along?
Come together?
They didn't. They didn't. Okay. So I sensed right away. Now, my whole life has been about the client. So I'm swimming amongst sharks here. It's Shapiro doesn't like Johnny coming in. Bailey's kind of aligning with Johnny. It just became like a miasma of egos.
Right.
And Alan Dershowitz is on the phone every meeting, and so it was kind of crazy. But I learned from John. We just go do our work, and then you kind of turn it in, to the lawyers, and they start seeing it. And Johnny right away was thinking. I remember we did a big presentation in Shapiro's conference room. And Bailey was kind of saying, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have icons moving around, kind of like what you do now. Bailey was way ahead of his time. He was blowing up pictures and making these little magnetic icons and show where witnesses were at times.
Right. helping, interpret the information.
Yeah. And Johnny loved it. I don't think Shapiro did. And I remember Shapiro made a crack to me or something about Goldman. I told you to find out how long it took Goldman to drive from Metzaluna to his apartment. And I remember getting pissed and saying, well, if you read the discovery, you'd see Goldman didn't drive from Metzaluna. He walked and he got a car, Andrew Terry, and this is all in our presentation. I remember afterwards I said to Bailey, what's with the
attitude?
What's with the attitude by these? He said, just keep doing your work. These are kids in a sandbox, is what he called Shapiro's called. And then it just never, it was
right.
It was rough. It was not easy. Then by the time trial gets started, it's not till January. It's supposed to start in September. And so that whole time was me and McNally and Howard Harris, who's here locally. Matter of fact, used to be in this building. He was kind of like our Elmo guy.
Right.
He was our technology guy. Computer was from the Navy. I think he learned. No, he was in the Air Force, and he learned a lot of early days of computers. So he was so important to us because that helped develop our
your
presentations
for sure.
and stuff.
Yeah. So, obviously, 90 probably +% of the people in the world think you're crazy.
Right.
Of course, he did it.
Right.
But you believe and from based on your investigation that
I think
the jury got it right.
The jury got it right. And you mentioned 90%, but I did an interview. I did an interview, I think right after the verdict with Katie Couric. And it was going to be on the Today Show, but they moved it to a Dateline. But we got all done. It might have still been on camera. She said 80% of the country. And he had nothing to do with it. I explained everything. And I thought the government's case was full of holes. And she said, 80% of the country thinks your client's guilty. And I think at the time there's 300 million population. I said, 83 is 24. That's 240 million think he's guilty. We haven't heard from any of the other 60 million except me so far. And maybe one of and Lee and I think one of the two of the lawyers.
Or something.
Yeah, there was 4 or 5 of us saying he didn't do it.
Right.
And then his family, of course. But I remember saying, you don't hear from any of them. And I didn't think I'd ever make the Dateline thing or what, because I got bumped off the Today Show by some woman that claimed this was the night after the verdict, and we had gone back to OJ's house, and I think her name was Sheila Weller. On the Today Show, they put her on first, and it was like the kids were frightened of OJ. They were scared, screaming, crying, get away from me, which was total BS. But they had the green room kind of like this. I was sitting back there. You could hear a pin drop. Brian Gumbel was so kind of upset, and I mean, you could just feel the vibe in the room, like
Right.
It was.
Right. It was, everybody had made up
Yeah,
their
it
mind
was like
before,
everybody, because they all think he's guilty. And now they're hearing, how horrible it was, and that OJ met his children, how could he? And it was the Brown family brought him up, the kids, to Rockingham, I think it was. And anyways, it was the beginning of the craziest media storm, media frenzy that I'd ever been part of. Because to this day, it continues.
Absolutely. And so then you got into another firestorm with Casey Anthony, who was a young mother. Child went unaccounted for, and then ended up being found dead. So that was another case where I think America, in the media had convicted her, and you guys, went in with Jose Baez, who we know, and she was acquitted, and people went crazy. Yeah.
Like you wouldn't believe, like real death threats.
That's all the time we have for today with Pat McKenna. But next week, we're going to hear the entire story of his involvement with the Casey Anthony case, the so-called Tot Mom, a famous case from the Orlando area. Hear how Pat hid Casey in his house for years undetected. You won't want to miss it. The rest of Pat McKenna's episode next Thursday at noon.
If you'd like to appear on Courtside Convo, send us an email or visit us at legalgraphicworks.com. Look for new episodes every Thursday on the Legal Graphic Works YouTube channel, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a show. Thanks for watching.